to our Shelburne Council Candidates Open Forum Q&A session. My name is Mike Fizzackerly. I'm a local area Shelburne resident. Mr. Topping was going to join me this evening. Unfortunately, is not able to do so. Prior to beginning this evening, I'd really like to send a special thanks to Lisa Pete and the crew here at the Shelburne Legion. They kind enough to donate tonight's facility. The Legion certainly is a pillar building block of the community for more than 85 years. To Alex Shear, who's here today, who also sponsored the coffee and the water this evening from the Shelburne Freelancer. Thanks very much for the coverage. To our good friends at the Shelburne Free Press and Economist, who also picked up the advertising for tonight's events, thank you very much. A special mention to those from FM Country 105. They were very kind to us on the radio, allowed us to get on last Friday morning, as a matter of fact. And special mention to Greg and Heather Holmes for providing tonight's sound system in conjunction with the Legion. The format this evening will go as follows. We do have some candidate introductions just prior to your arrival. We did do a random draw, so we're going to ask our council candidates to come up to the podium. They're going to have 3.5 minutes for some opening comments and remarks, followed by an open Q&A session. The Q&A session, we're going to park the microphone in the center of the room. I'll meet you over in the center of the room. It is open Q&A. I'm simply going to ask that you come up one at a time, and please limit yourself to one question. That can be a question that's directed to any one of the candidates this evening. It can be directed to all candidates this evening. Ideally, we'd like to give everybody in the audience the opportunity to ask questions if you have questions, and certainly the opportunity for all council and deputy mayor candidates to comment this evening as well. The candidates will have a maximum of 2 minutes to reply. There will be no rebuttal this evening for one candidate comment to the other. And I'm going to reserve the right for final decision on questions that are deemed acceptable. I'll give you some examples of what we expect this evening. I can't give you an example of what's not acceptable. When we get there, I'll certainly let you know. Right? But I mean, we're here this evening to, there's a great group of candidates that are looking for your vote this evening, both for a position on council, as well as 2 individuals running for deputy mayor. Of course, joining us this evening is Wade Mills. Wade will be sworn in shortly as Shelburne's new mayor. And I think to begin with, we'll probably hear from Wade. But, questions that are centered around infrastructure, development, planning, financial, community well-being, services, police, fire, recreation, parks, downtown, traffic problems, those sorts of things. The experience, personal traits, or qualifications of the individuals here before you, and or their principles, visions, opinions on current and future town needs and wants. So joining us this evening, running for the position of deputy mayor, we have Steve Anderson. Steve, just a bit of a wave. And Dan Sample. And we'll hear from both Steve and Dan following the council candidates. And joining us here this evening, unfortunately, Mikhail Archer was unavailable. But we do have Walter Bonato, Linda Buffett, Althea Casamento, Kyle Fegan, Leonard Gachardi, Shane Hall, James Hodder, and Lindsay Wagner. So this evening is really about you and these council candidates. Please make the most of it. Our evening will end at 9 o'clock sharp. I believe that some of these candidates will remain around for those of you that want to engage in some one-on-one dialogue. So to begin with, Wade, could I ask you to say a few opening remarks? Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for attending. It's certainly encouraging to see this number of people come out and take an interest and be engaged in what's going on in our town. Before I begin, I'd just like to take a quick second to thank our hosts and our sponsors for tonight. Even though Mike mentioned them, just give a quick shout out to Shelburne Legion Branch 220, Shelburne Freelancer, Shelburne Free Press, and I'd also like to thank Mike Fizzackerly and Ken Topping, who really sort of conceived this idea and spent a lot of time planning for it. It's unfortunate that Ken wasn't able to join us tonight. As you know, Shelburne faces a big decision in this election, and that decision ultimately will be answered by you, each and every one of you, and it's up to you to decide ultimately what you want. I believe that Shelburne right now is at an important juncture in our town's history, and the choices and decisions that our next council will make over the next 4 years, and the actions that that council will take or not take, will have a lasting impact when it comes to the kind of community that Shelburne becomes well into the future. For myself, I firmly believe that we do have the ability to build a future for Shelburne that is vibrant and dynamic, but one that still honors the rich history of our past. And I'm confident that through the growth and change that we are experiencing, Shelburne can and will emerge as an inclusive, livable, sustainable, prosperous, modern community without losing the identity and the character that has made Shelburne such a special place for so many years. I don't believe for a second that that is an either-or proposition. And the reason for my optimism is rooted in my faith in the spirit of all of you and everyone else who calls Shelburne home. In a political climate that today too often is characterized by building walls and creating division, let us stand apart and let Shelburne be a model of what is possible when people come together and realize that while we may not share a past, we certainly do share a future together. The challenges ahead are not insignificant, whether it's infrastructure, transportation, emergency services, parks and recreation, or housing. I think all of us have a pretty clear idea of what those challenges are. The new council, after it's sworn in on December 3rd, will be undertaking a big challenge, and we can't do it alone. Moving forward, we're going to need the strength and the energy and the wisdom of the entire community behind us, and I do sincerely hope that we can count on that support going ahead. We will also have to recognize that the new challenges that we're facing will not necessarily be solved with the old way of thinking. We have to recognize that we have to be innovative, and we have to be bold, and we have to look for new solutions. And we have to hesitate dispelling possible ideas because we haven't ever done them that way. Again, in this area, let Shelburne stand apart from the crowd and let us demonstrate to other communities how challenges can be overcome when a whole community bands together and pulls in the same direction. Looking ahead, I'm excited and optimistic about Shelburne's future, and in no small part because of the 11 candidates that you see in front of you tonight. All of you have some important choices, as I said at the beginning, but I think you have a lot of good choices and a lot of quality to choose from. You're going to hear from these candidates tonight, and regardless of any preconceived ideas that you may have come here with, try to listen with an open mind. It takes a lot of courage to put your name on a ballot, but these 11 people have offered themselves in the service of our community, and they deserve our respect and our gratitude for that. So give them a fair shake and listen to what they have to say. In the end, might I suggest that you ask yourselves, which candidates most closely align with your own hopes and your own aspirations for our community? Which candidates have the skills and the qualities and the temperament to effectively fulfill the duties of the offices they're seeking? Tonight is your opportunity to answer those questions for yourself and then decide. So thanks again for coming, and I look forward to a spirited discussion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mills. First at the podium this evening is Althea Casamento. Althea. And Althea, I'll remind you that there is 3.5 minutes. There is a clock that is visible to you on the back wall.
Hi everyone, thank you very much for coming out this evening. My name is Althea Casamento. Oh, sorry. Hi everyone, thank you very much for coming out this evening. My name is Althea Casamento, and I'm pleased to announce my candidacy for the position of Shelburne Town Councillor. For those of you who don't know me yet, I'm a mom of two. I'm a business owner here in Shelburne, and my professional background is very diverse. I've studied business, human resources, and photography. I'm someone who loves to be involved in the community, spearheading and assisting with many fundraising initiatives geared to some of our much-needed programs and services. Some of those services are the breakfast program, family transition place, and our local food bank. I love to participate on committees and events such as being the vice chair for the Fiddle Parade and being a past director for the Fair Board. I was also the host of the Shelburne Multicultural Day. Over the years, I've brought forth several proposals to council, to our current council, on items that matter to us as a community as well. Shelburne has seen tremendous growth in a short time. We're at a pivotal point right now, and over the next few years, many difficult decisions must be made. Shelburne will continue to grow, and we will need a council that is representative of who we are as a community to be our voice. It's important that as we grow our standards, our strategies, and our approaches. As councillor, I will ensure that your concerns are tabled for discussion, and will work with the other council members to do what is best for our community. This is our town, and if you vote for me, I will be your voice on topics that impact us, such as supporting local businesses and entrepreneurs, job creation, managing growth, supporting heritage and cultural-based programs and celebrations, supporting recreational facility and programs for our community, and supporting school programs and initiatives. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Sophia. Next, if I might ask Leonard Gashardi to the podium, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Len Gashardi, and I want to thank everybody for coming out this evening. It's nice to see this kind of public engagement. It's the kind of engagement that we traditionally don't see in municipal politics, and I just want to encourage everybody to get out and exercise your right to vote. Little bit of background about me for those of you who don't know me. I've lived in this community for 58 years. My dad was born and raised here with his 7 siblings, and we've really wanted. My dad served on town council as well. I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about all of the issues that are going to impact this community. This community is at a crossroads as far as the size of steps we take. Okay. This community has been taking small steps over the years, and all of a sudden growth has outpaced us. So it's time that we move in bold directions. It's time that we make commitments to investment in the community. Everybody today is going to be talking about infrastructure. Everybody tonight is going to be talking about growth. Everybody tonight is going to be talking about a rec center, a bypass. And all of those other things that make Shelburne a great place and the needs of the community. I would like to say this, there's a difference between an expenditure and an investment. And I think that Shelburne needs to invest in its growth as opposed to just paying for services. Okay, and an example that I'm going to use is the police issue. Okay, we don't have a policing issue here. We have a police homeless issue, if you will. We need room for our growing police force. 3 years or 4 years down the road, we're also going to need a new fire hall. So one of the proposals I was looking at was having the police and the fire in one complex. So we plan ahead and invest. I have nothing against the OPP. I think they do great work, but it is reactive and responsive policing as opposed to community policing. I've been a teacher in this community for 20 years. I see the police in our halls, at the school, saying hi to the kids every day. And I think that's something that's important, building those connections and building those community relations. Anyhow, Piers, I'm running out of time. I want to thank you for listening. I'm seeking your support in this election, and good luck to all the candidates. Thanks for listening.
Thanks very much, Mr. Charity. Lindsay Wagner, if you would please. And turning up the heat in here, just so you understand, folks, turning up the heat in here was not part of the plan.
I was already hot. Thank you everyone for coming out today. My name is Lindsay Wagoner and I am seeking a seat as your municipal councillor. I have been a resident of Shelburne for 15 years now, having purchased my first and current home here, marrying my best friend, and having my reception in this very room catered by the lovely Women's Auxiliary, and beginning my family with the birth of my 2 daughters. I have watched Shelburne grow from a population of 4,200 to a community of close to 10,000. With that growth, I have seen challenges and triumphs. Over my years as a community member, I have been very active in volunteering, having joined the Fall Fair Board, where I was also the Homecraft President for 3 years, the Street Festival Committee, the Junior Schooners Little League, and becoming a Brownie leader for our Shelburne First Brownie unit. I've also hosted and participated in numerous fundraising charity events. I believe community involvement is key to providing our town a place they are proud to call home. As your councillor, I will work not only to continue this path, but to improve upon it. I feel a stronger partnership with community service groups, the BIA, and the Cdrc will greatly benefit us all. I will make one true promise to you, the community, and that is to listen to your concerns, wants, needs, and vision for Shelburne, because a strong leadership comes not only from what I believe to be the answers, but by taking your opinions, the people of Shelburne, and applying it. During this campaign, I'm taking a step away from traditional promises political figures make, and instead I'm asking you the questions for your vision of what Shelburne's future should be. By doing this, I can better plan to tackle the issues at hand, such as housing, both for growth and for our seniors, industry employment for our community, infrastructure such as roads, water, sewer, traffic concerns such as congestion and speeding, activities for our youth, and keeping our town safe with police, fire, and paramedics. There will be many challenges faced ahead, but with the help of fellow elected council members, I believe we can make a difference. A positive, responsible change with strong, grounded roots to our history and our heritage. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Next we have Walter Bonanno. Walter, if you would.
I would like to thank the Shelburne Royal Canadian Legion Branch 220 for hosting this event this evening, and also the Shelburne Freelancer and the Shelburne Free Press for sponsoring this event. And thank you to all the rest that have helped. Thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Walter Bonanno, and I've lived in Shelburne for the last 35 years. My wife Anna and I have 2 sons, Michael and Daniel. I went to school in Melanchthon, one-room school, Centennial Highlands, and graduated from Centre Dufferin High School. I am a graduate of Sheridan College as an electronics technologist. I have served as vice chair of both Highland Heights and Centre Dufferin District High School parent councils. I served on the executive of minor hockey and lacrosse. I also coached minor hockey, soccer, lacrosse, baseball, and umpired baseball. I am a former Rotarian. I have served on town council for the past 19 years, and I have served as a member of council on the following boards and committees: Budget, Library, Centre Dufferin Rec Centre, Human Resources and Heritage. And I currently serve on the following committees and boards: Economic Development, Public Works, Accessibility, Provincial Offences, Dufferin Board of Trade, Shelburne and District Fire Department, and the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. I feel we need to promote more our arts and culture and make better use of Grace Tippling Hall and Jack Downing Park and our artists. We can hire a person on base salary and commission with experience to bring more events to Shelburne and to promote our events and our artists. Collingwood used this method to promote the Elvis Festival. Yes, our town does need a truck bypass to remove the heavy trucks and the heavy weekend traffic and improve traffic and safety. I have petitioned the MTO for the last 15 years to get this done. And I would like to see an advanced green light at not only at Greenwood and Owen Sound, or Main Street, but Owen Sound and Main Street to better move traffic. I would like to work towards an internal bus service for our citizens to get around, and also either a GO bus or partner with Grey County in order to get those citizens to work. I see a need for more accessible playground equipment for our parks and more accessible homes for our seniors and those with accessibility needs, and more condos for our seniors as well. I would like to continue with our master park plan to create more trails, a dog park, splash pad, and more activities for our seniors and youth, such as tennis courts, basketball nets, pickleball, and it can go on and on from there. Our infrastructure needs to be better managed. The roads, sidewalks, and pipes. Our fire department and police department are both at capacity, and we do need to address that situation.
30 seconds, Walter.
I would like to see balanced growth between commercial, industrial, and residential to create more jobs for our citizens. So on October 22nd, I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Walter. Up next, Kyle Fegan. Kyle, if you would, please.
Well, first I'd like to thank the organizers for putting this event together, and certainly thank all of you for coming out tonight to basically put us through the ringer, essentially, and ask the questions that you really want answered. A lot of you may not know me yet, but my name is Kyle Fegan. I've been a resident of this town for the last 10 years, and in that time I've become very involved. Whether it's being a part of the Street Festival Committee, the Canada Day Committee, helping out with the Heritage Festival, or helping with the Heritage Day Parade. I've also been very active using my contacts and bringing up up-and-coming bands to create events like the concert we had to raise funds for the pole barn at Fiddle Park. I also volunteer my time and experience in marketing, where either I'm creating ads or logos or signs that are displayed throughout the town and its events all throughout the year. I operate two businesses in town. The first one is Impact Creative, which is an advertising marketing agency that's been in business now for the last 12 years. This year I just opened up Impact Martial Arts out of the Trainer Games Fitness Center as a judo dojo, which is certainly advancing some sport activities for the youth. All of us up here on this stage have all talked about improving our commercial and industrial sectors just to keep pace with the ever-growing population. And I'm pleased to see that we all see this as a priority. And I feel confident that whoever you guys vote in as your council will certainly work together to this end. For me personally, one thing that I feel needs a real focus is our youth. As a father of 3 young boys and the head instructor of the Judo Dojo, I feel it's important that we start looking at creating not just events, but more programs for our youth. We need to get them engaged. I'd like to see some mentorship programs. I'd like to see some entrepreneurial programs, along with the sports and the arts. The more tools that we can give our youth, the better their chances for success in the future. Fiddle Park, of course, has been a very popular topic of late as well. Not only do I want to see the park used more, but I'm already right now planning more events to make that happen. I can't talk too much about them in particular, as we're just 1 week away from approval for at least one of them, but I can say that these events hopefully will definitely draw people from all around and will hopefully increase our tourism and popularity of our town. In regards to a bypass, this has been a focus of many councils before us, and it's certainly something that is desperately needed. It's certainly not a topic that I'm interested in letting up personally. The bypass is very much needed, and I do intend to continue the conversation with the MTO and certainly continue to push for the approval from them to make this happen. I love this town. I'm very happy to call it home, and I give as much of myself as I can for it. And hopefully with your support, I intend to continue to offer myself as your counselor, who will be available and accountable to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kyle. Next up, Linda Buffett. Linda, if you would, please.
I'd like to start by thanking everybody for taking the time out of their busy schedules to come here tonight and listen to all of us. I've lived here in Shelburne now for 20 years. I've been a long-serving member of the Shelburne Rotary Club, and my reason for deciding to run in this election began back a few months ago at the thought of having to leave Fiddle Park to developers. Council at that time had hoped that they would generate an $8 million cash flow from the sale of the park that would help to contribute toward major infrastructure needs. So what I'm going to do is focus most of my time on discussing how we can solve most of the infrastructure and financial problems that we're going to be dealing with in the future. So if you ask yourself the question, without this $8 million of capital, who is going to pay for all these financial commitments? So far, I haven't heard any major solutions other than having to gather input from the public, and that's an important thing to do. But the first thing I want to suggest to you that we would have as an alternative, if we don't find a way to generate some significant revenue, would be to have to increase taxes significantly to cover new long-term debt, reduce service levels, postpone recreational projects, and possibly have to outsource our policing just to make ends meet. That's the position that we're in today. So clearly that's not an option. So the question is, what is the alternative? I've talked a lot about growth and said that growth doesn't pay for growth, but developers have to contribute their fair share to these infrastructure needs so that we benefit as a town and enjoy a good quality of life. Currently, if you look at comparisons throughout the municipalities in our surrounding area, Shelburne receives approximately $17,000 for each single-family home that's built in town from developers to cover a wide range of infrastructure expenses. But this is one of the lowest levies that are being charged within the surrounding area. Looking to the east of Shelburne, towards the east where Honda is and where there's lots of industrial revenue flowing there. The development charge there is $37,000, which is significantly more than what Shelburne is collecting in at $17,000. So here's our challenge. We have two large housing developments set to go forward next year. We have a very limited window of opportunity to correct this shortfall if we decide to pass a new development charge bylaw. Looking at the revenue that we're going to receive in approximately $9.6 million, give or take, for these two projects.
20 seconds, Linda.
Okay, we need to generate that extra by increasing development charges. So that would be what I would look at doing to take care of this shortfall, because it's certainly not going to have to fall on the shoulders of individuals like yourself to pay for this. So in closing, every problem has a solution, and I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. In case you didn't know, that is what the bell sounds like. Joining us next, Mr. Hodder, James Hodder.
Hello everyone, I'm Jim Hodder. I moved into Shelburne about 8 years ago with my wife Joan, and over the last several weeks she and I have been walking the streets of Shelburne dropping off our campaign flyer. It's the best way to know where you live and who lives with you, and it sort of gets your muscles in tone because there are about 75 streets in Shelburne, and we've been going up the stairs and down the steps and all over the place to drop off a flyer, which I hope you've all read. I think I've got just a few more houses left to do before I'm finished my project. But it was a good thing for me to talk to people, to meet with them, to know who my neighbors are, and to discuss what's on their mind. Now briefly about myself, I grew up in Armpire, Ontario. I went to high school there, and then I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to go to Queen's University. I got my bachelor's degree in mathematics, and then I went on to get my master's degree. And with all that help, I was able to make my way through life. I ended up and help other people make their way in life. And as your counselor, that's what I would try to do for them. and you. Now, as I was talking to people on the road and in their houses, it came up that we were looking at concerns of the police service, of trying to look after the traffic in town, what we might do with building up the business and so on. And while I was getting ready for tonight, I just went to the town website and I looked at something that I thought was very interesting. Does anybody here know what the town motto is? A people, place, a change of pace. And that, I think, summarizes what I've been thinking about myself about what this town needs to do. We have a significant traffic problem with the trucks that go through Main Street and Owen Sound streets. And you know that there are people who are already talking about that. And I'm one of those people who think that we could perhaps do something with diverting the heavy truck traffic around the town. They make noise, they create fumes. The fumes are not good for us, by the way. And they rattle our buildings when they go by. And maybe we can do something, make delegations, go to Queen's Park and say, this is something that we should do. And by the way, since it happens to be Premier Ford in power, many of you voted for him, and I think it's time that he did you a favor by getting the truck traffic around the town instead of through it. Also, we need to work with the upper level of government, county level, federal level, to try and bring in some businesses and industry in this town so that people don't have to spend a great portion of their lives driving to Brampton or Mississauga or even Toronto and wasting their lives when here is where they should be with their family. So I would work for you to try and develop the industry and businesses so that people here have that change of pace. And finally, if you vote for me, I will work hard for you. Not only that, I will be one of your councillors who will be transparent, accountable, respectful, and approachable. So thank you very much, everybody. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much, James. And finally, running for the position of council, Shane Hall. Shane.
So first and foremost, I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. I also appreciate our sponsors for providing us this opportunity to allow you to get to know us as we stand before you for the next few hours. So my name is Shane Hall, and I'll give you a little bit of my background of who I am and what I believe is important for Shelburne and its success in the next term. I've lived in Shelburne since the age of 16. My father, however, was born and raised in the area, so this is how it became home. I also attended Cdrc, finishing my high school education before embarking on my post-secondary education in St. Catharines, where I attended Brock University. It was at university that I studied my accounting and my economics. I then returned shortly thereafter to start my career as well as begin raising my family. I have 4 wonderful children, 2 girls and 2 boys, whom are all proud to call Shelburne their home. From the professional standpoint, I do work at KTH Shelburne Manufacturing, where I currently serve as the Senior Vice President Plant Manager. Through more than 20 plus years of career, I've seen and overseen the production and technical divisions with clear directives set on efficiency improvement, budget control, and future business growth. Through a team approach, we've been recognized as an automotive benchmark within North America. During this time, we've also become not only Shelburne's, but Dufferin County's largest employer. This has all been accomplished by taking an organized approach to ensure everyone's success. From a community involvement point of view, my volunteer work includes supporting minor sports associations, the local community support groups, as well as sitting on the Economic Development Committee. On a broader scale, I'm also a member of the Automotive Council of Canada. I hope this gives you a little of that background and some of the qualifications that I bring forward. I'd now like to take the opportunity to share a few of those focus items with you. Balanced growth. So with Shelburne rapidly growing, it is imperative that all sectors receive that same level of attention. Whether it's residential, retail, or employment-based, we have to ensure that it is distributed in an equal manner. From a youth engagement perspective, while it might be cliche, it's very true that our youth are in fact our future. The opportunities for our youth are not what they once were. Without having the opportunity for growth and mentorship in our community, we will lose such a large connection with the identity to this town. To this point, I've already taken initiatives with the high school to better engage our youth. Fiscal responsibility. The needs and wants of the town require clear balance and understanding. Appropriate infrastructure must be maintained prior to many of the conveniences. While we all have things we want to see added or improved, we must ensure that basic requirements are met first.
30 seconds, Shane.
From a community involvement side, we have a tremendous group of volunteers willing to support a variety of initiatives. Through simple communication and refocusing, we can reestablish these partnerships that help with many of those conveniences we talk about. I strongly believe that these are key elements and they all have an interconnection. By addressing them in a concurrent approach, we can then set a solid path forward. I, as always, will be open-minded to opinions, viewpoints, and thank you for allowing me to introduce myself this evening.
Thank you very much, Rohan. Thanks to all of our council candidates for getting up this evening. I'd like to call on, we have two candidates running for deputy mayor, Steve Anderson and Dan Sample. And Steve, I think you were the luck of the draw.
That's okay, that's okay. All right, good evening everyone, thanks for coming. By way of background, I'm a litigation lawyer with the Toronto Transit Commission that just celebrated my 15th year at the TTC a few years ago, where I received a number of awards for my performance and service to the community. Prior to coming to town, I've served on a number of boards. I was appointed by the provincial government to serve with the College of Kinesiology. I've served with the Brampton Task Force, working with a number of politicians in that community. And I was also fortunate before coming to town, receiving the House of Commons Award for my service in the community. Since coming to Shelburne, I'd like to say that I've hit the ground running. I first joined the Town Transit Committee, where I was working with our former CEO, John Telfer, and Ron Monroe, trying to secure GO Transit service right here to the town of Shelburne, which we finally need and deserve. Since being on council, I served on the Cdrc committee, the Street Festival Committee, and I also created the student committee at the high school, which was to ensure that the voices of our students are heard at the council table. When it comes to my platform, I'd like to say that it's one of action and not simply words. First and foremost, as it comes to our first responders, I'll be the first to say that I support our first responders. I've spoken to the police chief, our fire chief, understanding the issues, the concerns, but more importantly, discussing the issues. And I'm committed to looking and exhausting every avenue that is possible to keep our first responders, yet being prudent at the same time and looking at the other options on the table. When it comes to our healthcare needs, it's obvious that as a growing town, the fastest growing town, that we need more medical equipment, services, etc. I've taken the liberty to speak to Headwaters President Stacey Dobb. She's agreed to do a town hall event right here in Shelburne, where she will share her vision for the town, and the residents will have an opportunity to share their concerns and thoughts as well. When it comes to recreation for our seniors and our youth, I will work with our developers. We need all hands on deck. I will work with our corporate entities. In fact, just recently, I was able to sit down with the branch manager at TD, and he's agreed to commit a portion of his 2019 budget to invest in recreation for our youth and our seniors in 2019. When it comes to transit, my background's in transit. I will work, and I've been working with Sylvia Jones on this issue. When I got appointed, she reached out to me to discuss going to GO Transit Management because we have the numbers to justify the service. I will continue to do that. When it comes to jobs, of course, I will work with the Economic Development Committee to ensure that we have new industry in this town. What many of you may not know is that I took the liberty to meet with Councillor Michael Thompson in Toronto. You may be asking, well, why did I do that? Well, I did that because he's the chair of the Economic Development Committee in Toronto, and I wanted to get from him some ideas that we could use here to attract industry in the town of Sheldon. When it comes to the bypass, of course, we all know that that is needed and deserved to ease congestion and improve safety on our streets. And I've already spoken to Sylvia Jones on this issue. She has said, and led us to believe, thank you, that when the time comes, she will try to secure a meeting with the Minister of Transportation at Queen's Park where we could have a one-on-one discussion. So these are just some of the things
that I'm working on that I would ask for your support to continue to work on. And I thank you for your time and I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Steve. We're finally this evening, again, on the position of Deputy Mayor, Dan Sample. Dan.
Put these on, I won't be able to see you, but I can read the paper. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Most of you know me from my face around town and all the events and everything that we host around town. But my name is Dan Sample and I'm running for Deputy Mayor. I've lived in Dufferin County most of my life, settling in Shelburne in 2012 with my wife and kids. I feel, as you probably do too, that this is a great community to raise our children, and that's why I fell in love with this town. I'm retired from Honda Canadian Manufacturing after a successful 30-year career. I quickly moved up the ladder from team leader to production coordinator to eventually leading projects to standardized plans throughout North America and handling budgets. During this time, I acquired many skills to help me in my position on town council. Leadership training, effective listening, analytical problem solving, just to name a few. I'm a hard worker, quick thinker, and a factual decision maker. I'm grateful and humbled to be elected 4 years ago and proud of the work we in this town have accomplished, but we're not finished yet. We still have more to do. We're in this together. A very close friend and mentor, Councillor Tom Egan, he told me after I was elected, the key to being a great councillor was listening to the people. And I stayed true to that, making myself available. I'm very involved in the community, and I have chaired many committees and boards. The Centre Dufferin Recreation Complex, Street Festival, Canada Day, Hometown Heroes, Music Festival, just to name a few. I've also volunteered in the community, executive board member of the Shelburne Soccer Club, Shelburne Minor Ball, president of the Shelburne Curling Club, Legion member and volunteer, executive board member of the Shelburne Kinsman Club. Just to let you know, we raised $6,000 yesterday for the toll gate for CF. I work closely with the town on the advanced green at 89 and 124, which has now been approved and be going forward. We suggested to council we install new signs at our town parks. The new lights at Fiddle Park and Highway 10 timing was adjusted to accommodate a better traffic flow, and much more. I will continue to work on improving infrastructure, sewage, water, and roads, traffic safety, town service, police and fire, transit, addressing public concerns, ensuring developers are taking into consideration not only our aging population, but also our new residents. With the development already scheduled in town, we should reach about 10,000 in the next 4 years. We're told this is the magic number that will bring commercial buildings to Shelburne because of their business will be sustainable. More convenient shopping and more jobs are on their way. As Deputy Mayor, we need a voice at the county level, and with the knowledge I have gathered over the last 4 years as councillor, I can use this to bring our voices there.
20 seconds, Dan.
Shelburne can be heard. I hope for your vote as Deputy Mayor and continue to serve our community with integrity and transparency. We're in this together. I hope for your vote as Deputy Mayor on October 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. We're going to open the floor to some open questions and answers, but we're going to take a 7-minute break so you can. The skies earlier looked like Kansas, Toto, and I know that everybody's melting in here. So 7 minutes. If you want to get up, get outside, get a breath of fresh air. I'm going to move a couple of microphones around. I'll meet you back in here. 7 minutes. Good. Portion of the evening is open Q&A. Anybody that is interested in asking a question, I'm going to ask you to move forward to the podium. I will ask you to write your first name, last name, and just street in the book here. But by all means, in no particular order, it is an open Q&A. One question directed at any one candidate or all candidates.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Lang. I live on Main Street. So you know, one of my questions is traffic, but I don't think, I'm well aware, I'm going to start with the first question would be then, is that, as Linda brought up an interesting, some statistics on the 17K that we currently levy for the builders. And there was a time period that we have that we can, is it open that we can actually increase that? That's the first question. And how quickly can we get to that? Is it something that this council can address in the time period? So I'll let you start with that, Linda, because it was your question.
Okay, to answer your question, when the new council comes in, and because of the fact that the developments are coming up later in the year, it takes time to put all that together and have the studies done to justify why you need the extra money. So we do have time to do that before those two developments take place. If that answers your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And I understand that there is the second question, I guess, for anybody in the council would be, what is the biggest plan or the starting point to actually start the re-engaging the MTO again on the bypass?
I'll try to answer your second question. Regarding the bypass, we've spoken, a few of us have spoken to Sylvia Jones at the fiddle contest parade, and we asked her about engaging with the Minister Rebuttal about the bypass. She promised us that she would get us in there if we were still standing after October 22nd, and we had a one-on-one with him. We've had that one-on-one with the Liberal minister in the past. We had no go at all from him in regards to it. But with the fact that we have an MPP that's willing to come in with us and speak on it, as well as having Conservative government, we feel we have a brighter chance this time, or a better chance of getting that bypass. And then in regards to your first question, yes, it does take time to have that done. Our 17,000 was done with the previous council before. It was a study that was done. It takes time to do that study. And that was the recommendation of that time there, was 17,000. There will probably be a review within, again, with consultants in whatever the new council decides at the time. And that recommendation will be what council will have to go with, because that, if we go any higher than that, they just challenge you at the boards.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Come on.
First,
Yep,
and I'll write my name. Hi, with the recent, I know Shelburne, nice place, I've been here over a year, and the dogs are in the parks, off leashes, okay? The dogs, several dogs have actually ran down members of my family. We called the police is like, oh yeah, that dog, we have had complaints already, but nothing was done. So my question is, what are you guys gonna do about the bylaw of dogs off leashes? Yes, some dogs are very nice, and some are not. So anyone want to, that would be great, thank you.
So yeah, so we recognize that there is an issue with dogs running in our parks free of leash. We put the signs up to help stop that from happening. Our bylaw states that we're complaint driven for those types of reasons. So everything needs to be directed to the town hall and fill out a complaint form, and then we looked after. There's been many times that our bylaw officer has been out and collected up the dogs that have been off the leash already in those areas. And 4 years ago, I did start a dog park committee, and it was moving along fairly well, and then people stopped coming out. And then we, at Shelburne, our winter festival, we have a group of dogs that come out and give dog sleigh rides, and all the money that they raise goes towards the dog park fund that the Kinsmen are setting aside right now. And I think we're up to about $2,200 in that fund right now.
Okay, thank you. But some people are not able to make it. So my son is being run down by a dog. I call the police. I do not come and fill out forms, right?
Right, but you don't have to fill it out personally. Yeah. You can send a friend. You can do whatever needs to be done to get that information to town hall.
Okay, thank you. Another question. Phil
No,
Park.
we're just one question. Thanks very much. You're welcome to step back in line, but we're going to limit to one question and get as many people through as we can. You might be next, however.
So I have two lead-ups to my question, and they're brief, and I do have a point. I'm the sponsorship coordinator for the Shelburne Fair. It's a 151-year-old institution. It's as old as Canada. They struggle with sponsorship. We approached every major developer in town for any type of sponsorship, and no one responded. Additionally, I met two people tonight. They are young retirees. Their house is listed for sale privately. Beautiful house. They are moving to Mount Forest because there is no transitional housing for them. They are in a beautiful big house. They're ready to downsize, but not into a condo. There are no fourplex bungalows for them. There are provisions in the Planning Act that councils can request developers for community funding for the projects that everyone here talked about, the youth, the cultural, the arts and things. Tax dollars need to go to support the infrastructure. I don't see that happening. I don't see anybody asking the developers for that. Councils also have the authority to drive affordable housing and the type of housing you want when developers come to your town. This is the fastest growing community. They're tripping over themselves to get here. Why is that not being done? And my question is to the deputy mayors. There are provisions in the Planning Act to drive affordable senior housing and community, for lack of a better word, sponsorship. Why is that not being done?
I'll go back to as far as the developers. Every time the developers come in and they come in front of us and they submit their plans and all that kind of stuff, we do ask them for affordable housing and complexes. The latest one that was in was the one that's going down by the train tracks. We asked him, because he was all towns in that area, we asked him for a fourplex or a sixplex, whatever he could put in there. So he came back with plans to put a sixplex in that area for that particular reason, because we did ask. We do ask all the developers. Flata was another one that came to us a few weeks back. Excuse me. And one of the questions I did ask him is do you look at seniors and affordable living for them when they come in? He holds a public consultation when he's coming in to see what the needs of the public is. So when that comes in, you guys and everybody has to come out and voice those opinions to say this is what we need. And he does build that. He's got many, many areas around in Ontario that he's built that he's done that with. So again, that's what he's doing. And I forget your other one, sorry. Oh, community support. You have to hit them at budget time. It's really funny because we've asked for, a lot of the clubs have asked for support from the developers to do that. And if you don't hit them at the right time when they're putting their budgets in for that particular reason, we miss out on it. So the Kinsmen and the Kinettes ask for help on some of the stuff that they do. The street festival, we get some dollars we don't get when we ask. So it's just it's a budget timing for them, and I'm trying to learn when that is for them, so we can start getting those dollars coming back into us from them for support.
Thanks, Dan. Steve, did you have something to offer there?
Sure. I don't want to recycle the first point, so I'll just start off with the community support. And I agree with you that we do need to leverage the fact that we are the fastest growing town in Ontario. So certainly when our developers come here, that's the time to use that leverage. The ones that I've spoken to that have come here and that are looking to start a business, they seem very eager to want to invest. And I think it's incumbent upon us to demonstrate exactly what that looks like by becoming a community partner. So that's something that certainly as a council that we're working on, I've been working on as well. And as you heard in my opening, that I went to the TD Bank because I certainly believe that our corporate entities need to do more. If we're going to be a successful community, we have to have all hands on deck. So I went to them and I said, listen, we need investments in our youth and our seniors when it comes to recreation. We can't put it on the backs of taxpayers all the time. When I went there, they were very eager to support, and as I mentioned earlier, that they're committing a part of their 2019 budget to invest in community services. So, on top of that, they've also stated that they are going to, the gentleman that I spoke to, the branch manager, that he's going to go speak to his partners and see whether or not they can get additional funding to invest. That's just one bank. There are other banks that are in town, and that message will be repeated at that level as well.
A reminder to everybody here this evening, we are not at a council meeting, and I'm going to remind you that we have a wide group of candidates before you. So some of your questions ideally are centered around some of the qualifications, some of the skill set, some of the visions that some of these other candidates may have as well. So.
Thank you. Question number 2. Fiddle Park. Is it being used to its full potential? Because right now I see once in a blue moon you have activities. Is there a profit? Because yes, I know it's being maintained, it looks beautiful. Is the revenue coming in offsetting that? Or are we operating at a profit? Or is it just a nice landmark we drive by and say, oh, that's beautiful. So what's our plan to make sure revenue and profit is coming in to Shelburne and not me paying for it with my tax dollars?
So what I'm going to do, Lindsay, I'm just going to start down at the end here. If you'd like Docs to comment on Fiddle Park in particular.
I'm actually a huge supporter of keeping Fiddle Park. I attended the town council meeting and voiced my concerns that I did not want it sold. And my main part of that is if we think about Brampton, I know we can't compare ourselves to Brampton, but Brampton was once small. And if they sold Chinguacousy Park, think about where they would be right now. So yes, at this very moment, it is a little underutilized, but it has great potential. And we are working with community service to have more events scheduled there. What I'd like to do as a council member is more promotion. Know that you, as the regular people, can rent Fiddle Park for any event that you would want. Family functions, reunions, things like that. It can be rented. So we do need to get a little bit more promotion out there so that the common people, such as myself, know that this is something that can actually be rented. So that's what I would say going forth is make sure that we get more events there so that we are utilizing it so it doesn't seem like it's just a chunk of land that has to have the grass cut. And just remember that, you know, Chinguacousy was once potentially up for sale as well, and yet they chose not to sell it, and it is a huge, huge heart of Brampton right now. So I would like to make sure that Fiddle Park stays a heart of ours. Thanks.
So thank you. I guess the question is an interesting question because the sale of Fiddle Park was rather contentious not long ago. Council members, I think unanimously, had approved the sale of the park and subsequently rescinded the sale of the park. So I'm just curious, from all the council candidates, including deputy mayors, just a show of hands, are you in favor of retaining the park and finding better utilization? Is there anybody here that is opposed and would like to look at the revenue associated with the sale of Fiddle Park?
One of the things that troubled me about the whole conversation about the selling of Fiddle Park was that there was none, okay? This was kind of done, or attempted to be done, without disclosure, without transparency. I have trouble with the process more than anything else. And that's what really irked me in terms of the sale of the park. Now, we need to use it more, okay? I can tell you that for sure. And we need to promote it more. And we need to get the service clubs. I mean, the service clubs do a great job. I really, really think that they do an awesome job. And let them do what they do best, okay? And not worry about whether or not the park's going to be sold out from under them in the next, billion years.
Fair enough, thanks, Len. I know that certainly our new council will be looking for input from the community in terms of what the Fiddle Park might offer the community.
It seems to me that on the wish list is many, many millions of dollars.
millions of dollars for a police station, millions of dollars for a sewer plant, millions of dollars for fire hall, and with the 8 million grab that was kind of in the back door, it's gone. I would like to know where this money is coming from other than us taxpayers plus. And I would see if Mr. Anderson can answer.
Sure. Well, the town is, has the opportunity to avail itself to grants, to grant funding to handle some of these capital expenditures. So that's one way of addressing that issue. So it's not totally on the backs of taxpayers. We've been utilizing grants for quite some time to address capital expenditures. Look, it's as you heard at the Fiddle Park, there are financial constraints, yes. I assure you that council, the CEO, and the staff are exhausting every avenue to ensure that all expenditures are not on the backs of taxpayers. Look, we live in this community as well. I certainly don't want to see higher taxes. I'm paying them just like everybody else. So I could assure you that we will exhaust every option to ensure that the capital expenditures are met, other than putting it again on the backs of the taxpayers.
Any of you have any comments about how these things get funded?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that I spent most of my speaking time talking about the solutions to that, because everything that everybody needs and everything that everybody wants has to be paid for without taxpayers' dollars. That part of growth should be paid for through development charges. We have development charges, but they need to increase significantly to offset that, and that is a perfect solution. It's not maybe going to cover 100%, but it's going to cover significantly more than what it will do if we don't do that.
Just a quick follow-up to, I mentioned grants, and there's also reserves that we have available to us as well that we can use for these capital expenditures. And this is why it's important, as we talk about finances, that it's important as a town that we continue to build a healthy reserve, so when these capital expenditures do come about, we could draw on those reserves if we don't have the grants to pay for some of these expenditures. So I just wanted to add that point as well.
I just want to add, there's a big difference between an expenditure and an investment, okay? And do we want to be a community that spends money, on the things that we need without investing in the things that we want, right? Do we, for example, do we pay the OPP to come in every year, and at the end of 10 years, we're kind of saddled to them. Whereas if we invest that money in infrastructures to support the local police and the local fire departments, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, we get the service, but we also have the asset of that building on the books. And that's a big difference that we need to keep in mind. I really am a firm believer that we need to invest in this community as opposed to just, treat essential services like we're buying road salt. So.
My question is direct to the two deputy candidates. I'm changing the angle a bit here. It revolves around county council. As the deputy mayor, you're responsible to attend county council, and I understand from my research that it's one meeting a month as well as committee meetings. Unfortunately, I've checked into it, and unfortunately, over the past 4 years, I'll use a word that our voice at county council has been somewhat weak. I've got that information from other county councilors. What assurance do we have that you two gentlemen before us tonight are going to represent the town at county council, because we've been sliding back and falling behind? And again, what would you do to make a stronger involvement at county council level?
See, I'll ask you first.
Sure. Well, and thanks for your question. I think the first thing I would say is I would point to my track record by way of attendance on council. Since my term on council, the only meeting that I've missed is on the behalf of town business, advocating for the benefit of all of our residents. the time I was away in Ottawa as a part of the delegation with our mayor-elect and Walter Bonato and our CEO. So that level of commitment is what I would bring to county council by way of attendance. By way of a strong voice, I'd like to believe that since I've been in this community, since I've been on council, that my voice has been heard, and I've been able to use that to bring initiatives or to bring things that benefit the residents that we have here in town. Again, as I mentioned, I'm a litigation lawyer with the TDC. I'm very comfortable being on my feet. I'm accustomed to having my voice being heard and yielding positive results, and I believe that I've done that on committee. Certainly there are issues when it comes to county council that we need a strong voice, so whether it is high-speed internet, I know that the county has taken an initiative to look at that, but we certainly need a voice advocating that the needs here are met in the town of Shelburne. As a growing town, we need to have services. Our seniors need additional housing that are affordable, and I assure you that at the county level, I'll be that voice for all of our residents. Thank you.
See, Dan?
Well, I'll go back to probably the last 18 years at Honda while I worked there. I was pretty much a trainer for a piece of software that I did, so I had to talk in front of numerous people and train different types of people. I had to change the way I spoke so people would understand what I was speaking about. And I think that with that knowledge and that background, the ability to do that, that voice at county council, I can bring your voice to county council of your needs. And with being retired, I can come and see you guys before those county council meetings happen and voice your opinions when it needs to be, because I'll always be available during the day. Night, day, I'm there. So with all the committees that I sit on currently in town, there's a very strong voice that I have with the other committee members that we do. I think I've missed one council meeting in the last 4 years, maybe two, and one was due to a flight to Ohio that I had to take because I was still being employed by Honda, and the other one I just couldn't get out of bed because I was totally sick. As far as all the committees that I sit on, and most of you know most of them that I do, I don't think there was any of them that I did miss. So my track record for supporting this town at different levels has been, as far as I'm concerned, 110% when it comes to that type of stuff. So your opinions and your voices will be heard with me.
This is for you, Andy.
Okay. First off, I would like to thank all the candidates for putting their names forward for a seat on council. Good for you for thinking enough of our town to consider running for council. If you are chosen to represent the constituents of Shelburne for the next 4 years, I would like you to please keep in mind the concern I have about the future growth of our town. First, a little history about myself. My name is Ann Crowder. I currently reside at 509 Simon Court. I've lived at that address for 21 years and was born and raised in Shelburne and have called Shelburne home for over 60 years. And as I age and mature, I realize Shelburne needs desperately to add to the style of homes being built in this town. I'm talking mid-rise condos and bungalow loft style homes. Our population now sits at 8,500 people and is slated to grow to 10,000 in the next few years. In Shelburne, we presently have one mid-rise condo built on Robert Street that I believe has 39 units. The builders coming to town are putting up mostly two-story homes around the 2,000 square foot mark. As nice as these homes are, they are not a practical choice for everyone. We are an aging population with many empty nesters and professionals who no longer require large subdivision homes. But I believe would still like to have home ownership, a place to call home. I wonder about the young families buying in the new subdivisions, raising their family. If the parents and grandparents move closer to their family in Shelburne, what do they buy? Their options are limited. Most towns in our surrounding area have the kind of housing that I'm speaking of. Alliston, Orangeville, Collingwood, all have nice mid-rise condos and other options to choose from. I would like to call Shelburne home for many years to come, but cannot see that happening if my housing needs are not met. I don't believe that I'm unique in this situation. So I'm asking you, the candidates tonight, if you are chosen to represent the taxpayers of Shelburne on October 22nd, will you take a serious look at the types of housing I've just asked about? So myself and others in this town will not have to leave the town they call home to find suitable housing that meets their needs. I look forward to speaking with any of the prospective councillors on this issue. Thanks.
So it doesn't, whoever gets voted in, by all means. That's what it is. Lisa?
I'll introduce myself. I'm Lisa Pete. I am the president of this Legion. I moved to Shelburne in 1988 with my ex-husband, and the reason why we moved here is because his family was from here and my grandmother was born in this town. I would like to ask every one of you tonight that was not born in this town, why did you move to Shelburne? Because I know why I moved here.
Great question. Shane, I'm gonna...
So again, as I already mentioned, I moved back to this town with regards to my family. My dad was from the area. My mom had recently deceased, and I was at that point living in Stratford. From that point though, moving back to be again amongst family, chose to move in with my father, and subsequently I've called this place home since.
Althea?
Thanks, Lisa, for the question. I came here in 2012 before buying a house here. Before buying a house here in 2013. I immediately fell in love with the community. I thought it was marvelous.
You have to talk right in front of the mic.
It's very bad. I came here in 2012, and I immediately fell in love with the community, and I thought it was a much slower pace, and it was somewhere where I wanted to raise my young kids. Moving from Brampton got too overcrowded for me, and it was, I didn't feel that sense of security and safeness. When I moved here, I mean, it's a world of difference. You say hello to everyone as you walk down the street. You're comfortable. You know most of the people. You move to a big town or a big city, you don't even know your neighbor, and that's something that I want for my kids. I wanted to be able to know that they're okay, know that they're safe, know that they're going to the schools and they'll be fine. I want to know my neighbors, and I want to know more about my community. Thank you.
So it's an interesting question, James. You said you moved in from Arnprior. Why?
Well, I didn't move directly to Shelburne from Arnprior. I lived in Kingston. I lived in Ottawa. I lived in Toronto. I worked in Mississauga. I married my wife in King Township. I moved into her cabin in the woods for her. We were renting the cabin. The landlord said he was going to double the rent. We figured, why should we pay that? So we followed our son and his family to Shelburne. We got in touch with the real estate agent that they used. And because we were looking for something that was affordable, this was at the time when Johnson decided to pull up stakes and go into the night, we were able to take advantage of the depressed housing prices, and we moved. So it was basically an act of fate that brought us here. But I think if you'd asked Joan or me, we'd say that we've blended in quite well. We'd be happy to see the growth that has come in since our arrival. And we're pleased to see the diversity of the population as Sheldon moves ahead. And I think that we blended in because there are a lot of Newfoundlanders in here. I'm half Newfoundlander. My father came from Newfoundland. And
I'd like to say it was because it's the fastest growing town. Well, that's not true because it wasn't at the time that I moved here. The truth is, it was affordability. When I was looking to purchase my first home and I looked around in Brampton or Toronto, the prices were just way too high. So it was that really that brought me to the community. But what is interesting, I tell people that that's what brought me here. What kept me here was how I felt welcomed when I was here and the people that were here. And that's what I sort of spread the message when I'm talking to my friends, whether they're in Toronto or Brampton and looking to purchase a home. That's what I tell them, that the people here are great, they're welcoming, they're friendly, And there are opportunities that are here. So whether you're launching your own business, or whatever that you choose to do, the opportunities are here. So for me, initially, that was the reason why I came.
But excuse me, can I say something? I want to make a point. But it's not anymore, because I moved up here in Shelburne 2016. Before 2016, the prices wasn't very reasonable. Now after 2016, from the Brampton, they don't come many people anymore. Why? Because when they're selling before 2016 in Brampton of close to $1 million, they buy down here 3,000 square feet, close to 400,000. So right now in Shelburne, the houses they went up, and the people say in Brampton, that's what I'm hearing too. Why I have to move to Shelburne? Because if I sell it there 800,000 and I pay here 700,000 a house, why should I move here? Not only that, 95% in Brampton, the houses they are with brick. Here, vinyl. It's a big difference. So it changed tremendous after 2016, a lot. Right now, I'm not going to mention this company, but there is one new company up here which is selling already. I don't know how many houses they sold already, but right now they defrost. They can't sell it because they're selling too high. Too high.
Actually, I don't know if there's a question in there for
My
any of these
question is-
candidates.
No, but my question to all of you is, what are you going to do to be attract people to come in Shelburne? What are you going to do? Because the prices they are too high. People are not going to come in. We need developments in this town. We need the companies to come in and build builders. But the price has to be reasonable. The otherwise, people are not going to
So
come.
I'm not sure that any of the council members can necessarily address that question. I think house prices is really determined by supply and demand. And I don't think there's any question that the growth of Shelburne was in fact fueled over both economics as well as somebody mentioned earlier, Lisa, I'd like you to tell us why you're here, but somebody mentioned earlier that Shelburne's motto is a people, place, and change of pace. And I don't know that necessarily that it's council members that determine Shelburne being a people place. I really think that that's up to the community to determine. It is, as somebody mentioned earlier, walking down the street and saying hello. It is, as somebody perhaps didn't mention, but holding the door open and not expecting but hearing that thank you. That's what makes a people place. And it is economics that have fueled the growth of Shelburne. And surprisingly, from an age standpoint, we are one of the youngest demographics, one of the youngest towns in Ontario and in Canada. A number of years back, the average age in Sheldon was 37 years old. So there's two spectrums that the town council is going to have to deal with moving forward. That is, the younger youth, the organization, or not the organization, but certainly the youth of the community, as well as those that, because it's been a common theme, that there's no affordable housing for seniors, let alone the recreational aspect. So I'm not, from a developmental standpoint, I can only suggest to you to do some research. I think that from a developmental aspect, Shelburne is going full tilt on every opportunity that is available to it. The issue that we have is being landlocked, in the ability to grow. So anyway, I don't want to, I'm not here, I'm not running for anything, folks. Lisa, what is it that brings you here?
What brought me here was not affordability, because we moved here in 1988 and bought our house for $145,000 at 13% interest. What brought us here was I was born and raised on Toronto Islands with a very small population. We were moved to the city. I went to a high school of 200 in the city because it was closing. And then I did not want to live in the city anymore, and I wanted to move to a small community. I moved to this small community, and you are correct, sir. They are very friendly. It's a lot like Newfoundland. It's a lot like Nova Scotia because people say hello to you when you walk down the street. I moved to Orangeville for 5 years, and I never got that. I moved back to Shelburne, and I'm here because this is a very small community, and we all support each other.
I have a question, or just maybe a comment. I just introduced myself. My name is Karen Lang. I was born in Shelburne. I was raised in Shelburne. My father was an electrician, a member of the Kinsman Club. We supported this community. We volunteered. We love this community. It's a great place to grow up. But that being said, when I graduated high school, like many others in the early 70s, there was no employment. There was really no future here for us, so we all left. Went to the city, went to Brampton, went to Mississauga, wherever we could seek education and employment. But, so we did, and we decided, when we decided to raise a family, my husband and I decided we wanted to come northwest of the city and wanted to build a home, but we had Caledon Township in between, so we couldn't afford Caledon, so we ended up in East Garifraxa. So we lived in East Garifraxa for 10 years, and then when my parents passed away 4 years ago, we bought their Century home, which is one of the Century historical homes on Main Street between Victoria and James Street. That being said, I've seen the development in Shelburne. I've seen the traffic patterns. I think, like coming back to Shelburne, I would describe the traffic on Main Street as gross. Maybe? I don't know. I sit and look out my window and I watch transport after gravel truck after stock trucks, everything go through the town. So I understand the bypass is probably on the top of your list as a serious issue that needs to be addressed in this town. But I have my question is really twofold. You're making all the right steps. You're talking to the right people to try to make this happen. How long do you think it will be, or how long do you think it will actually take to get that bypass?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I'm not really sure that anybody's really in a position to answer a question like that, are you? I mean, realistically, that is the Ministry of Transportation. I think that certainly anybody who is on council will move forward. I think we'll make it a priority issue.
Just on that, we're dealing with MTO. Things take a long time. We've heard from Walter. He's been on council for 19, 20 years now, and it's been 15 years that he's been working on it. It's still a progression. It's still got to happen. I think we can take baby steps with it, though. Is maybe we can work on the truck routing, and not necessarily 100% of the traffic, but maybe the truck routing. We can give different routes for that. So, and we have been in talks with some of the surrounding companies around, and if you notice now, a lot of trucks that are going southwest are actually going up second line, 30th side road, and up third line. So that was because we asked for stuff to be done. So we got to get there, and it will happen. It's just a matter. It's a lengthy process with MTO. I can't give you a date or a time frame on the bypass, but I think we can work with the county and make suggestions to them on maybe lightening up our truck flow. Definitely.
Is there other quick questions that you have?
I guess that was.
May I make a comment, please, about your question? Let's talk politics. I'm talking about provincial politics. We studied the political situation in this riding, Dufferin-Caledon. The people of this riding have been voting faithfully for the Conservative candidate for a very long time. And it's almost to the point, I think, from my point of view, because I've only lived here 8 years, that the Conservative Party of this riding are taking you as voters for granted. And I think it's time that we got something in return for the faithfulness that has been shown by the voters of this town. And maybe it's time that we, as a council, as a people, start doing things that will help get that particular problem solved as quickly as possible. And we can do something like delegations to Queen's Park to visit the minister, Mr. Yakubuski, whose father, by the way, was my MPP when I was a boy in Brentwood County. So I might have something to say to him about that connection later on. But the point I'm trying to make is that I think we have to impress upon the provincial government that because of the faithfulness in supporting that party for so long, it's time that we got something in return. And I believe that the bypass is very important. Diesel fumes are carcinogenic. Diesel trucks make a lot of noise. They rattle everybody's windows wherever they are. We should try and get the government to say, let's do something for Shelburne. We owe it to them. Let's get this bypass done. So I would try very hard to get it done, not after another 15 years, but within the 4 years that your council is in power.
Hey, thanks, James. Fortunately or unfortunately, David Tilson's not running again, as I understand. So it's...
I'll try again, Karen, to answer your question. There's also another alternative we can look at as far as the truck bypass. We can speak to the county and we can ask them to extend County Road 11 across 30 Side Road and then take it up a 4th line, Langton, and that way they catch both 89 and 10 highway. And they can get the trucks routed around the south. So that is something we can turn around. Not only petition the provincial government, I hope we can get something out of them, but we can also petition the county and see if we can get something out of them as well. So we can look at a two-pronged approach. That would be my idea.
Did we impose a toll on the truck?
We're going to continue to move on. Did you get... We're going to continue to move on. I'm not sure how they can answer time frame regarding traffic, but I think there's some that remain as council. Welcome to have you back up here again. Thanks.
Mike, I'm sorry, could I speak to the bypass issue?
Yeah, very well.
Thanks. I don't know how many people remember this, but about 30 years ago, 32 years ago, bypass was an issue. And it was voted down because the people in the downtown core were concerned that it was going to kill the businesses downtown. So this isn't the first time we've heard this story, and you know the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I did speak with Sylvia Jones in August of this year about the bypass and a couple of other things. Her first 2 questions for me was where are you going to put it? Okay, and then is there the political will to do it? Because this was been done before, and it's different now because we've got more trucks coming through and we've got less businesses that are requiring selling products. It's all service based. So.
I mean, suffice it to say, traffic is just a major concern, I think, for everybody in the room. So, something to keep your minds set about that.
Hello, my name is Linda Omogrand. I actually live in Melanchthon, but I do have a business here in Sheldon, and I've been living in Melanchthon for 4.5 years. And to answer the question, why did I move here? My husband wanted to get out of the city. I always thought he was the country mouse and I was the city girl. And finally, after 2 years, I agreed with him and we came out here, fell in love with a home in Melanchthon and lived there. And then I chose to have my business here in Sheldon. I'm a financial planner, my business is on Main Street. What I'd like to talk about and address my comments to both deputy mayor candidates is the elephant in the room. Since I've been here, what I've heard is the landscape, the face of Sheldon has changed. And there are some people who don't like people of color in their city because I think number one is because they don't understand this and there's a fear. I have never had a chip on my shoulder. I'm one of those people who, when you see me on the street, I bow and I say hello. I went to Brenda and I said, Brenda, I know you've never dealt with black people here, but I will teach you how to do with mine. And we worked together for a while until I decided to go natural. So my question is, what are you as the candidates, because in the event that the mayor is not here, you are going to be the face of Shelburne. And how do you intend to incorporate the different faces in Shelburne so that they are fully represented?
Boy, that's a big one, isn't it? Wow. I thought it was going to be a light evening. All right, so on a serious note, I think setting the example has to be done at the top. Leadership has to show that from the top by way of initiatives, policies, whatever we could do to show that inclusion, diversity matters in our town. When I was going through my appointment process, one of the questions that was asked of me was, Steve, what would you do to help bring the town together? Because it is an issue, so we can't pretend that it's not. And so I gave a few ideas, and as soon as I got on council, I brought an initiative forward, an motion, in fact, before council, which was passed to recognize and celebrate the diversity that we have in our town. So as of January of this year, just to your point about recognizing the people that are here coming together as a community, celebrating our differences, you are now able to see, for example, if you would have noticed on the LED sign by the beer store, you would have seen things such as Happy Eid, Happy Diwali, Happy Black History Month. This was stuff that wasn't there before. So as a town, as leaders, when we show that from the top, people will follow, we hope, and see the value of recognizing and celebrating the different faces that we have. So that's number one. Number two, I also heard there were issues in the schools. So I was listening to parents who have children in the schools, high schools, otherwise, and so that's what prompted me to come up with the Stronger Together Award. You may have heard of that award. I came up with that award because it was designed to be presented to a student or students who demonstrated the ability to bring our community together, to reach out to the newcomers, for example, and vice versa. And so that's why that award was created, to, again, recognize and celebrate those who are working to bring our community together. So those are some of the initiatives that have taken place. And the last one I'll address is the Multicultural Day, which is what Althea was the brainchild behind, that we celebrated just last year, and it is our hope to do it every year. And that was well attended. That was at the Shelburne Public Library. And one of the people that attended that event said, you know what, Steve, I came here not really knowing what to expect, but I left here with a greater appreciation for the cultures and the people that live in this town. And if we could do that as leaders, then we're well on our way.
I think a lot of it is to do with interaction and getting people out involved in community things that happen in our town. So with hosting the street festival, we asked for different varieties of foods and entertainment that come to town, and we promote that, and we're seeing the group and the communities coming out. We also have the Easter event that we host, and we push that out to the everybody to attend. The Shelburfest is another one that we get nice community involvement in. The kids from the schools, they compete against each other, not as a team growing aspect of it. It's bringing those people together and those teams together to have that versatility around our town. People have to come out. I understand. I tell you, winter's not a great time of the month for everybody to come out, but if people come out, they'll see what's happening in this town. I see a lot of people. I go to a lot of places in town. I'm involved in a lot of stuff in town, and people know me. And
Now, Mr. Sample,
yes,
I don't mean to cut you off, but the last activity we had, the celebration we had in Sheldon at Fiddle Park, there was a Confederate's flag posted. And
at Fiddle Park.
At Fiddle Park. And so
At what event was that?
that was either the Heritage Music Festival or the Street Festival, whatever activity we had in Fiddle Park. Now, when you talk about activities, now, a lot of people know my face because I do attend a lot of activities.
And you do.
So listen, I'm going to cut you off. I'm going to cut you off there.
Okay.
I'm not sure that any council member can address a Confederate flag. That was up at the demolition derby, as a matter of fact. So I think that the point has been raised. The question that you posed is, what can town council or new council members do to ensure that there is integration, acceptance of diversity? And you've heard from the two deputy mayors. Is there anybody else up here that would like to comment on that question in particular? Althea?
One of the things that I've done, or several things that I have done in the community to help integrate everyone and get everyone partaking and feeling like we're all part of this community is the Shelburne Multicultural Day. I've also vice chair the Fiddle Parade, where I tried as hard as I could to ask everyone to participate in this entire community to participate, because at the end of the day, we all live here and we're all supposed to be, okay with each other, and we are a community and we are supposed to respect each other. That is the wish of everyone.
Next question.
As a teacher, I see a snapshot of this community every day when I teach at the school. I know the board and our trustees have been very, very supportive of bringing groups into the school. One Voice, One Team is a group that we have at the school all the time, and it's come to us with the support of the trustee and at surprisingly a great expense. Those kind of group activities where we're bringing everybody, being incredibly inclusive together. I know at the school level, we do have some diversity in our teacher population. And in addition to that, we're encouraged to make sure that we reflect in our lessons the vast diversity of all the populations. So those are the things that we're doing at the high school level. And me being connected to the high school and with the youth, I mean, I see that every day. So we are working on it. It's not perfect, and who knows when it will be perfect, but we're working on it.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Ann Homewood. It has to do about dogs. This is to everybody on the panel. I've lived here for 10 years. I've gone through Shelburne to Lake Eugenia for 49 years. I don't always have the gas to drive to Orangeville to use their dog park. Yes, I'm guilty. But I do use Fiddle Park all the time, Fiddleville Park, all the time with her, because it's a great place to play hide and seek with her. But she would never go after anybody, because she always stays close to me. If I'm not with her, she's like, okay, we might not go. But I was just wondering, is there a possibility of getting a dog park in Shelburne?
Before you answer, do you stoop and scoop?
Oh, I even stoop other people's dogs if I see them.
So, 4 years ago, one of the initiatives that I had when I joined council was I recognized that people wanted, I don't have a dog, but people wanted a dog. So I started a dog park committee, and we moved forward. We had, the first meeting we had like 20 people show up. It was great. Everybody had great ideas, and I contacted a bunch of towns and municipalities around that already put the dog parks in, and costing and all that types of stuff. And looking at costing and everything. It is part of our parks and plans and recreation area to move forward with it. And every year at Shelburne Fest, like I said earlier, we're raising money towards it. It's small amounts every time. I'm hoping to get together with some of the other local groups and get them to maybe, that they can donate to it too, and then we can move forward with it and make it happen. I don't see a reason why we can't. I definitely don't.
I would even help to donate money for a dog park.
Perfect.
No, I was just wondering about a possibility of a dog park. Because what I got thinking too was, because Greenwood already has fences up, all you would have to add is 3.
They use part of their fence.
So we're gonna add that to your list of priorities. Whoever gets voted in, dog park somewhere near the top of the list. Thanks very much for the question. Next, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dale Pierzynski. I'm new to Shelburne. Our family's been here. It's approaching 4 years. I've been with Mercedes-Benz for over 30 years. And about 4 years ago, I had a stroke, and so I'm on a rehab process. I would say the last year, my brain is starting to function pretty good. So the point I want to get across is the council is a very important element of this town with the tremendous growth we have. There are two things I have in mind: key performance indicators, known as KPIs, and best practices. So I want to know, how is the council going to approach, through the leadership of the mayor, who is a key, to ensure that the council has a number of meetings to look at these two areas specifically, to ensure that we are fiscally responsible in our community. If we need to bring in outside experts to analyze our financial statements, that we can ensure that we are doing the right decisions, and then we show the proper transparency. So that's my point. Diversity is another important element for me. It's easy because I have a wife that's Indian, so I'm very diverse. I plan to retire in this community, and I hope we can, when I look at the demographic of just this room tonight, we're going to have to look at the age and figure out what activities we're going to need. That's all I wanted to say. Let anyone want to speak to the issue, by all means. Thank you.
So if I understand correctly, the question to anybody at the front of the room is there a way to measure council or town performance that you're aware of? Walter?
As far as for the accounting part of the budgets and whatnot, we usually have an accountant come in and do the books every year. BDO does it for us. And as far as answering, the province requires us to do a huge amount of paperwork to make sure that we are following all the rules that they've laid out for us. And that is submitted to the province. They have the integrity commissioner. If we are not doing something we're supposed to be doing, that can be called in at any time by any citizen. That's allowed to happen. And so it is why council has to be transparent, and the accounting again is done by BDO.
So just one question, are you guys going to have specific meetings in the areas of developing KPIs for the town?
So with regards to the KPIs, the town will have some obvious ones that come out in the reports and such that are created. I also have that opportunity sitting on the Economic Development Committee. For that, with regards to our KPIs, we do set those KPIs. We set them whether they're short-term goals, mid-term goals, or long-term goals. And that's something that we look at as from a committee perspective. Are we achieving what it is that we set out to do, or are we falling behind, and where our focus needs to be? So that would be that same approach throughout all, and should be the same approach throughout not only the committees, but also council.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My question is for each of the candidates tonight, and my question is, what is each of your positions on the Shelburne Police?
Start in no particular order.
I appreciate that. Figured I had to say something anyway. In regards to the Shelburne Police, it's been a long conversation whether, personally, I don't feel that we would get personal attention that we get from the OPP as we do from our Shelburne Police. Our police department are on the streets daily. They are interacting with us personally on a daily basis. They know us by name. If we switch over to OPP, we're not going to get that same level of respect. We're not going to get that same level of response time either. If you think about how fast the Shelburne Police Department can respond versus how fast an OPP department is going to respond to any kind of emergency or any kind of situation where the police are needed. Personally, I don't think the OPP can keep up.
Well, I think think Kyle basically covered everything, but I stand with him in that regard. I feel that our police is in the town. They are amongst us. They respond to things that we need, and they respond quickly. I do fear, as a resident just like you, that the OPP will take a little bit longer to respond when there is a need for them. I feel that they take the time to go into the schools and create communication with our youth, which is so important, because we all know right now the youth and the police don't always get along. And I think when they can create that bond, it sets a presence that OPP cannot. So I am in support of our police.
Yes, I spent about 2 hours back in the end of August talking to the police chief and asking him a number of questions, and we had a very good conversation and talked about a lot of things related to OPP versus local police. And I know in talking to the community that if I was to do a poll today, that the majority of the people would support having Shelburne police. But there's also a component of the community, a smaller portion, who would like to consider at least looking at the OPP. So what I would suggest we do is to do things, our due diligence, get all the information in front of us. We need to ask staff to look at the communities who have gone from OPP back to local police and ask them why, because I think we'll find those answers will answer the concerns that we have, and also look at everything together and make that final decision. With what I had spoken about earlier, having enough funds, if we don't have enough capital to be able to address that need, that's what's going to happen. We're not going to have the choice. And that's not what I want to see happen. I want us to look at everything effectively and make the right decision, and that's basically what I have to say about that.
It certainly seemed a rather pointed question, so, and the question to me is in favor of keeping Shelburne Town Police or looking alternatively? Is that, I mean, it's just that direct. So, Althea, I'm just going to start at the end and work my way down to you, Dan.
Okay, I do agree that the Shelburne Police has a great presence here. They are always around, and they know our community. They know our community members. They're very familiar with our community. It is true that we would need a new facility. Now, we would have to look at it, we would rent that or we would buy that. But you also have to take into consideration the OPP. I think it's worth it to hear them out as well, because we do need to explore every option to make sure we make the right decision.
Just a show of hands, I mean, in favor of looking for ways to keep our current police force, believe that OPP is alternate, realizing that the question can't be answered because you don't have all the facts available to you, you just don't have everything in front of you. The cost of a new police services building, I believe, is somewhere projected at $4 to $6 million. So how are you going to pay for it? Can somebody tell me how you're going to pay for that as new council members?
So, I don't know if they actually need a whole new building, to tell you the truth. There's other means and other ways of doing it that I think we can establish that and we can do it that route. Mr. Ed Crewson came in and gave a very good speech at council there a few weeks ago about leasing opportunities. So there's leasing opportunities, there's other means that we can do that, not just necessarily build a brand new building out there. Is there a possibility of doing an addition to town hall and making it work for them? Those are other things that avenues that need to be looked at totally by council that comes in on this, and that needs to be done for sure. But I do think there's other avenues, and personally, I do support our Shelburne Police.
Going back to the discussion about costing, I've got with me a copy of Shelburne's development charges, and out of the portion that goes towards policing at the present time for each single-family home is $634. per house. And that, to me, is not anywhere near where it should be. So if we were looking at adjusting our development charges, we'd have to look at the whole proportionate share of what part goes to where. And if we know how much it's going to cost for a building, or an estimate, then we can adjust that to reflect that. Very simple. No tax dollars. Now, there may be costs for the managing of these on an ongoing basis through your budget, but the capital cost comes from development charges.
Gotcha.
I think I have to make an answer to the Ms. Cruzen's question. I'd like to say that I recognize that there are a lot of people who are committed to the Shelburne Police Service. I'd like to say that I'm neutral on this subject at the moment. The OPP are supposed to come in January to make a presentation about what they can do for the town. And my position is that we should let them make that presentation, study the subject, and look at what the consequences would be in making the decision to go to the OPP. I don't want people in here to think that the police officers should fear for their jobs. If we were to go as a town to say, let's go for the OPP, I would then become an advocate for the police service and say, the OPP, you've got to take these officers as your officers for Sheldon. I want them here looking after the town of Sheldon so that there's no disruption in their lives. And I also want to make sure that the town makes it possible for all of them to qualify as OPP officers. And that means stepping up to making sure that they get the background that is needed to qualify for an OPP officership. So I'm just saying, let's study the problem. Let's wait for the OPP to make its case. Let's study the facts together and come up with a compassionate and fair solution. And by the way, if we decide that we're going to stay with the Shelburne Police Service, it's because we have gone through this service and we found that they're deserving of retention.
Well, I think the good news is that it is a current council mandate, or was a current council mandate, to go ahead and proceed with an OPP costing. So, when that does become available, certainly there's some tough decisions for council to make, but certainly as a Sheldon resident, I'm pleased to hear that you're all in favor of looking for every means and every avenue possible to retain our current police force. That's, I think most people in the audience would share the same.
My name is Billy Rohan, and I have lived here for 14 years. My husband's family have been here for about 68, 70 years. My first thing is a statement. It has to do with the housing again. That not everybody here makes a six-figure salary. And, sometimes we are going to have to build up instead of out. The condominium building there on Robert Street, as a town, you guys collect about $86,000 a year in property taxes. You could probably only put about 4 or 5 homes on that property, and which is only going to get you about $20,000 to $25,000 in property taxes. So, and these homes that are being built, $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, our younger demographics of this community are having to leave because they cannot afford to purchase homes here. So it's just a statement, maybe when you're presenting to these developers, to try and look at more affordable housing for youth, the younger generations, that they can stay in their community that they've been raised and living in. I think that's very important. My second thing is, I was a business owner here for 5 years, and I've really seen the downtown core become a service downtown and not a retail downtown. And it's a shame because there is very little retail here, and I think it's very important that we really try and continue to support local and shop local. And I am just wondering, as a council, if you guys are being able to put a Property Standard Act to these owners that own these buildings that are starting to not look very well maintained. They're sitting empty with junk sitting in the windows. It's not very appealing downtown. And I don't know if the owners know that there are heritage grants available to make these buildings look more upkeep. And so I'm just wondering, do you let these owners know about these things? You know, our parking has really diminished. So I'm just wondering, because I think our town, like, you know, you see Creemore, you see Erin, how beautiful those towns have, those little small communities thrive downtown.
So, listen, I don't, I'm not here to answer any questions, but I do want to keep the line flowing.
Sorry.
One of the things that I can tell you is, it is on the Sheldon website, that currently the town is engaged in a community improvement plan. In fact, I know towards the end of the evening, I'll mention the open house and looking for community involvement, community support to get engaged in that community improvement plan. Part of it will look at the downtown core, but greater Shelburne as a whole, from trail systems to downtown core. That's sort of step one. There were, as I recall, facade improvement or business improvement grants and plans that have been put in place in the past. Some businesses have certainly taken advantage of those. The first and key step, as I understand it, is the community improvement plan. That needs to get done first, but I know that there has been addressed to some of the town bylaws in looking at the opportunity for uniformity. There is a heritage committee that has put together an entire color palette, but really the first step, as I understand it, Walter, unless you want to comment, is the community improvement plan is sort of step one in pursuing that.
Yeah, we had a community improvement plan many years ago, and actually some of the monies that were not used up at that point in time was set aside in our reserves to be reused again under the new community improvement plan. The Heritage Committee was part of that, set up a heritage look for the downtown core with a color palette. The Jellycraft was actually one of the businesses that did take advantage of utilizing that grant at that time there, and that's why you see the way that it turned out. So there are sign bylaws in place as well, and under the new community improvement plan, I believe they're going to look at it at making the downtown more of a heritage look. They are going to make sure the business owners do know about it, but then it's up to them to take it up and utilize it. We can't force them to use it. We can't force them to take the grants. There are stipulations that come behind the grants. It's just not we take the money and do whatever you want. You do have to make it look presentable and try to keep the heritage look of the town.
Thanks very much, Walter.
Good evening, I'm Norma Godwell from around town, and my question involves environmental issues. So my question to the council is this: would you have the courage to challenge the provincial government because of the programs they are introducing to cancel programs that were initiated to help reduce environmental effects? We all know the air we breathe is one way or another is affected by environmental conditions. And so we have a responsibility not only for what we do now, but we do for generations to come. And I think, in my opinion, the provincial government is going in the wrong direction. So would you be willing to address that? Thank you.
Anybody wishing to reply?
Yeah. Sure. It's not the first time that we've, not as a council challenge, but I've sat on the Conservation Authority for 19 years, and I've challenged them every opportunity I can when I'm at that level there. And at that level, I do represent the town and do take the town interests in heart when I go there. So whether it's water, trees, anything of that nature there, we challenge them. We've asked them for more money to help us out, because right now it's only the municipalities that are actually paying the majority or almost all of the budget for the Conservation Authority to make sure that we have the clean water, that we have the environment, the natural areas in our communities. So yes, definitely we'll challenge them. Yes, you're right, you are going in the wrong direction.
Right now, the carbon tax is a huge issue.
I don't know. challenge him on everything, but I don't know. That'll be a new council decision.
So were you suggesting then a Shelburne carbon tax? Is that what you're suggesting? Oh, okay. Because I do want to know whether my taxes are going up or coming down and staying the same. That's an important. Gotcha.
Good evening, and thank you for all the insightful answers that we've got tonight. My name is AJ, and I have been in this town for 30 years. Something like that. I just want to say first, to address something that was said earlier, I don't believe there's an elephant in the room. I'm just standing here asking you a question as a very passionate, loving Shelburneite. I want to say congratulations to all the candidates. You are all, excuse me for reading our long past speeches, you're all both crazy and brave to want to do this job, because it is both thankless and rewarding. Firstly, I would like to say that this evening, if you get elected, you'll be asked to do this many things. And when you get elected, you will realize that the scope of this job legislatively allows you to do this many things. My question this evening is for Mr. Anderson. You were appointed the position of councillor to replace Tom Egan. Tom Egan Sr., to be exact. To be fair, that's a pretty hard set of shoes to fill. There aren't too many people who could do that. You've been doing this job for less than a third of the councillor term. This particular job requires an inordinate amount of meetings, not just for council, but countless sub and ad hoc committees that will be struck throughout the term. The deputy mayor position requires even more meetings. You must sit on a variety of committees at a county level, as well as your monthly meeting. I have sat with you on the Cdrc, and you attended 3 out of 6 meetings. So first, what makes you qualified to fill the role of deputy mayor when you haven't yet finished a full term of council? And secondly, how will you be able to attend even more meetings when you are currently required when you struggle to attend required meetings now?
Thank you for your question. So let's see. What makes me qualified? I think I went through my qualifications earlier today. The things that, by way of my background as a lawyer and the committees that I've sat on with success before coming to this community. I've been here for, as you say, on council for less than a full term, of course, but quite frankly, that hasn't stopped me from doing anything in this community. If you see the things that I've done since I've been on council, so whether it's as of late where I was able to partner up with Bell Canada getting 15 bags for students that were starting school in September, being here on council for less than a year didn't stop me from doing that. When I was working with our schools to get educational experiences outside of Shelburne, and I arranged the Queen's Park tour, even though I have a full-time job, I was still able to do that, and the kids were able to go down to Toronto, to Queen's Park, and see our politicians in session. So there are a number of things that I've been able to do despite having a full-time job, despite only being on council for less than a year, as you pointed out, and I will continue. So 3 out of 6 ain't bad. Now, you didn't ask me the reasons why I missed the 3 meetings, but if you're talking about all the things that I've been involved in, the committees that I've mentioned, that I've only missed 3, I don't think that's an indictment on my commitment to this community. I would ask you to look at my actions, I'd ask you to look at the results, and let that be a determination as to whether or not I'm worthy of your vote.
Evening, everyone. My name is Lionel Chenette, local business owner, Shelburneite for 15 years. This question is directed to those running for councillor. Many of you have businesses in Shelburne, you have young children, and you're heavily involved in the community, and that's great. That said, what do you say to those who question if you do in fact have the time to do the important job of councillor? Sorry.
microphone just for okay. What steps will you take to allow you to focus on the job? Thank you.
So why don't we just start out the end, Lindsay?
So I am on numerous committees already. The Fall Fair Board, Street Festival, I run the Junior Schooners League, I'm a Brownie leader, so I just joined the Cadets. So I currently run fundraising events, and I even run events for the BIA when I can't even be part of the BIA. So my nature is just to be involved. So with that said, my family is great. They usually tag along. It's very common to see my children with me at a meeting because they just have to be. So I don't, foresee any change to that. I know that I can do the job. I know that I can be devoted, and I will show up because I currently do. So adding a little bit more to my plate just makes me fuller.
Sure, Shane.
So the decision that put me forward is coming forward for doing this position was not taken lightly. It was one that was decided not just by myself, but my entire family. I also put that same question to my employer. So with regards to that, I was given full support not only from my family, but my employer to make available whatever time I needed to complete whatever was required.
Thank you.
Well, I've lived here for 20 years, and during that time, I've been a volunteer the entire time. I'm a real estate agent, so I don't have a quote employer. I'm my own employer, so I tell myself when I have time. So what I do is try to coordinate my schedule with anything I have to do. I've sat on numerous committees with the town. I still have 2 that I'm on now. I've always done that. I've been a volunteer in the community through our Rotary Club, which involves a significant amount of work on a regular basis, and I'm quite capable of managing my schedule to fit everything in. I don't have a young family, obviously, so I've got time as far as that goes too, so that's it.
Thanks for the question, Lionel. It's actually a very, very good one. It's certainly something that is very, very important and should be brought forward. For myself, I am very involved with the community already. I am on numerous committees already, volunteer my time quite extensively within the community, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. The decision to run, again, as Shane had said, for his family, was certainly put forward to my family as well. They're well aware of what is involved and what is going to be coming forward as far as putting more on my plate, and we're all prepared for the job.
Move down to this end up here. To your question, please.
Sure. It's my passion that makes me involved in the committees that I'm on. It's a drive. It's not a job. It's not a chore. And I do feel that I'm someone who is dedicated to serving the community, and I love being a part of this community. So I will make the time for it. And I can say both as Lindsay, I bring my kids to these events, and they tag along with me. It's part of who I am. Thank you.
James, I'd like to comment on the question. It's about commitment and availability, I think, is what he's really asking. I think Steve had answered that successfully earlier. Len, Dan, Walter, you guys are pretty much stationed here, so.
One thing I didn't tell you earlier when I gave my 3.5-minute speech was that I'm not really a wealthy man, but I am educated, and I have a need to serve others. And a person that I respect knows my situation. I'm not poverty-stricken or anything like that. I'm just saying that I'm not a wealthy man. But what he said to me was inspiring. He said, you can make a difference by offering yourself to others. And that's my motivation. And I'm not going into this blind. I know that I'm making a sacrifice, a personal sacrifice, to sit on these council meetings which can tend to be boring. And and I'm going to have to sit on some committee meetings, which will take away my personal time. But I want to make the sacrifice for the benefit of the town. If you let me, I will make that sacrifice for everyone's benefit.
So certainly you have the time available to you, James, what you say.
Yeah, I do.
Good, thanks. Okay, with 5-2, so 1 or 2 more questions. Just straight up.
My name is Dale Smith, and I've been a Sheldon resident for the past 16 years. I was looking forward, Jennifer had asked a question that I was anxiously awaiting the answer of you, Steve. I am curious as to what your thoughts on are supporting our local police.
Sorry, was that a question specifically directed at Steve?
Yes.
Okay.
I was waiting for
Steve
you.
will ask
I
you.
was
That's
waiting
okay
for
question.
So I did state that in my opening that I do support our local police. I mentioned that I had spoken with the police chief not only to understand the issues and the concerns, but to look at possible solutions to those issues. And so at the same time, you know what, let me just add this to the answer. As we talk about OPP costing, and I agree we have to do our due diligence and look at what's prudent or what's on the table. But I say too, because I would assume that this decision is going to be made at some point with public consultation. But what I will say is that we shouldn't get distracted by the low-hanging fruit that may come with the OPP costing, because there are intangibles that I believe that our police bring that don't show up on a balance sheet. And you heard earlier today about the officers building relationships with their youth. I could tell you that I was at a drop-in program with Alethea and Alton at Glenbrook, and we were giving a pep talk to the students or the people that were there before they engaged in their recreational sports. And who was there beside us? It was 2 police officers that were in town answering the question of the youth. Some of the questions were, have you ever been shot before? Have you ever fired your gun? But they were there addressing, building that relationship with the youth, and you're not going to see that on a sheet. So I will exhaust every avenue to ensure that we can keep them here. But at the same time, I will certainly look at the options that are on the table, because as elected officials, you would expect us to be prudent.
Part B to that question is, if you had a choice, what would you choose? Yes or no?
Okay. Well, I think for the reasons that I stated, that if I had a choice and it made fiscal sense, and we found through public consultation that the public wanted our local police. But to answer your question directly, I would want our local police. I'd want our local police.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks very much.
Good night, everybody. My name is Tristan Barracks. I actually don't live here. No, I'm joking, I do. I've lived here for 4 years, 3 years, sorry, at the end of the month. And I have a young family, and I have a little bit of a perspective from a person living in the big city, in the GTA, moving to a smaller suburb like Shelburne. My question is to the individuals that want to be deputy mayor. It's more about vision. I love the passion and the legacy that we have in Shelburne. Shelburne has a historical history. We want to respect that. We want to cherish that. But we also, as a city or as a town, have opened up our arms to new families, young families. And it's not necessarily a racial thing, but more a generational thing, at least in my perspective. What is, not to say that there aren't racial issues, I'm just saying from my perspective, okay? The question I have for you guys is, how are we going to galvanize these 2 generations? How are we going to galvanize the historical Shelburne individuals that have lived here for many years, and galvanize also the younger families? Because, you know, things like, let's say for instance, the Heritage Music Festival, right? A lot of people that live, breathe, and have grown up in Shelburne know a lot about it, know a lot of things that are going on. But I live in, you know, in a newer community where, you know, people are mowing their lawn while we're having the parade going on. So how are we going to kind of amalgamate or galvanize these 2 generations to create a vibrant and a unified sort of town? That's my question.
It's directed at both deputy
Yeah,
candidates. So
yeah,
Dan, I can ask you,
I do.
again, Steve, you were on the hot seat last time, so Dan, I'm going to ask you to address that. We're going to give you less than a minute to address that. Steve, less than a minute. We're going to wrap this up.
that's one of the reasons why I came to this town also, is that when you can walk down the streets and you can say hi to whoever, you can open the door for the person, I think it's just a matter of getting that information out there and what they need to see and how to pull them out. You know, I've been trying for 4 years now, 5 years, 6 years that I've been here, I've been trying to do that. I'm seeing more and more of it happening. I think it's just a matter of small baby steps and get the involvement that we need. I have 2 young kids, 13 and 11. They go to school, their friends come over to our place, they go to their place. I see a lot of interaction happening with the younger youth that are happening. Our Shelburne Soccer Club, young youth, interacting with our younger youth, and again, our coaches are an older youth, or older, and youth, some. But yeah, I'm seeing that happening. It's going to happen. I think it's just a matter of, we grew so fast that it happened, and now I'm starting to see myself, I'm starting to see that growth coming into the town and seeing that. I'm seeing it every day, out on the streets. I'm out there downtown, I'm seeing it. I see everybody's coming together, so I just see it happening.
Steve, any final with that at all, or you feel like you successfully addressed that already, or do you feel like the question's been answered in the years?
Well, just more specifics, and I respect what you had to say. That was great. But Steve, if you could just speak to maybe specifically what some of the things you see, maybe from a visionary standpoint, like from a leadership standpoint, how we could kind of galvanize.
Galvanize?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you just can't wait for things to happen organically. Maybe one of the things that we could do is have a town hall and gather the people there and get a sense of what is it that the community wants to do and how do we want to progress forward, and how we could maybe hash out some of the activities that respectively we'd like to see and participate in. Maybe we could do a community survey on the behalf of the town and put that information out there as to what are some of the events that the youth, the seniors, and others that are here in town would like to see happen, and try to come up with a plan and put that together. So as by way of concrete steps, I would think some of those initiatives would be important, getting that feedback, because you're right. I mean, it's things are happening in the town, but yet there seems to be a bit of a disconnect for whatever reason. It's not that, in fairness to the committees and the groups that are in town, it's not that they're not trying. So I don't want to give anybody the impression that the committees and the people that are here, Dan included, and the others, Kyle and others that are sitting on these committees that are not trying to get the community together. For whatever reason, there's disconnect, and if we could take these steps that I'm suggesting to try to bring the community together, I think we'll be well off.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, I said at 9 o'clock we're going to wrap it up. There are 2 people left, so I'm going to ask for your permission to allow these 2. I don't want, if somebody has a question, I'd like to...
My question, Deb Wagstaff, and I have 2 young kids, and my question has to do with the legalization of cannabis on October the 18th. And I know a lot of municipalities have already been proactive in making bylaws. I realize that we use the Ontario Smoke-Free Act, and in that there are certain places, in public places, that we cannot have smoking, and cannabis will take the same route. But that means that people can smoke on streets and on sidewalks. And so I know Halifax, for instance, has taken as a city that they are not allowing that on any municipal owned property. And so I would like to hear the present council how you have proactively prepared Shelburne for October 18th, because we also do not have a bylaw officer right now, which means there's nobody to even watch to keep my kids safe, because I don't want them exposed to inhaling any type. I know, and I appreciate that you can't get high from secondhand. I'm not saying that, but this is a small. I'm here. I love my kids. I love raising them in Shelburne. I've been here for 16 years, and I want to know that my council is out being proactive in making bylaws, not reactive, because we have. Maybe no one will smoke on a sidewalk, but what if someone does? When it comes to that. And so I would like to hear from people who are presently on council what you've discussed in council chambers. What have you thought about with October 18th coming? It was supposed to be July 1st. So this isn't all of a sudden it just happened. This could have been July 1st conversation, but it's actually on October 18th, which has been extra time. And also, what are we doing without a bylaw officer? Because our Shelburne police are great, they're already really busy. And how are we going to walk into this next
So-
part of societal living together.
So
How are we
there's-
going to live together and be all happy?
There's two questions there. Current council members, anything that was done in advance to look at the legalization of cannabis? No? I think it's just a yes or no answer. The answer is no. So it needs, I got you, it needs to be something that's on the agenda item, perhaps.
We are looking for a bylaw.
And in terms of a bylaw officer, there is underway currently. What does it pay, just out of curiosity?
You want
Thank
it?
you. Last question of the night.
Good evening, good night. My name is Nevin. I moved here 3 years ago, 2 weeks before my wife and I had our first baby girl. And thank you. Since then, we've been fortunate to have 2 years later a baby boy. I think there's something in the water here. Right? You know, I got a buddy of mine said he was going to go past 2. He's on number 3 now. But nevertheless, my family and I are thoroughly just enjoying.
Which I don't foresee very often. Basically, whenever there would be a building expansion and that sort of thing, of course that would come forward and I would have to, declare that conflict. But that would be the main item that we have with regards to working with the town as well as the corporation itself.
Yes. Please write down the age of both of your children on the book. Welcome to the township. On behalf of all of our council candidates, our deputy mayor candidates, I'd like to say thanks to all of you for coming out this evening. I hope that you got out of this what we hope that you would get out of it. There are a bunch of people that are vying for your votes. So the one thing that you absolutely need to do is exercise your right to get out and vote. So please get out and vote. As Final mentioned, so the town of Shelburne is right now underway with a community improvement plan. So there's an invitation. There is a full day, so they're inviting members of the public to participate in a community improvement plan. And it's going to look at vision for downtown and other key areas, including revitalization strategies, financial incentives to promote improvements, beautifications of Shelburne streets, parks, buildings, all the things that you hear being talked about. This really is the first step. So there's a workshop on November the 3rd. It'll be held in the Mel Lloyd Center. I'm sure that you can find information on the Town of Shelburne website. But you do need to register. I think there's a limited number of participants that are actually looking for to participate in that community improvement plan or project. So I would say check out the Town of Shelburne website. I give you the address, but it's way too long, you won't remember it. But community input is certainly going to be vital to that in particular. So, anything else? Anybody? No, I think most of these council candidates, deputy mayor candidates, are going to hang around this evening. I know that soon-to-be Mayor Mr. Mills at the back of the room got off scot-free, hiding in the back corner. But by all means, if you want to get some one-on-one time, then please do so. And again, thanks for coming in, everybody. It's